In this video clip, I'm going to walk you through the process of taking your consumable materials that were selected during the planning stages of the design process and assembling them into the different layers that will be created later in your 3D actual object of the 2-liter bottle. So to get started, I'm going to take a look at the consumable materials, make sure that I see which ones I've selected that I will be referring to in my planning stages, and then I will go and open up 2 samples just to show you what these will actually look like in the end. Here's one sample that shows you the 2D image of the 2-liter bottle. This is just a cross section of the 2-liter bottle, and this is the containment cap where all of the filtrated water will go through the filtration system and collect. So this is the 2D sample image. Now let's go and open the 3D sample image. Here's the 3D sample, which basically gives you an idea of what the 2-liter bottle would look like if it was filled up with the contents of the consumable materials that you select. So I'm going to walk you through the process by using the Sketchup program, and we will use Sketchup to model everything we need. So the first drawing that I want to open, the template drawing, I can find in the water treatment project folder. So you will see that this is where the web quest was accessed, and these were the directions that you started through. There will be more directions that appear once you get to the certain steps that you need to be on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the 2D 2-liter bottle drawing template. So I'm going to click on that file. It's going to download. As you can see, it's downloading. And then I can open it up with the SketchUp program that I currently have installed. I have 2013 SketchUp installed, but you still will be able to open this version in SketchUp 8. And the tool features will not be that much different. So I'm going to go and open, or show in folder actually. It's the 2D 2-liter bottle. And I'm going to right click on it and open it up with SketchUp 2013. Or I could, like I said, open it up with SketchUp 8. It does not matter at this time. So the 2D sketch is basically just a flat profile of the cross section of the 2-liter bottle, where it is already drawn out for you, and all you will have to do is to divide each of your layers up as you go, and you will then be able to use the paint bucket to actually give a texture to what you're actually putting in each layer. Okay, so let me make this a little bit shorter. So there is the 2D sample, the 2D sketch. As you can tell, the diameter is 110 millimeters, so our radius will be 55 millimeters, and we're going to need that later in addition to the height so that we can determine the volume of each of the layers using a formula for volume. So at this time, I'm going to go and start placing different layers on top of each other. So I'm going to start off at the bottom here. So the first layer, I'm going to fill up the bottom layer. And I'm not going to be telling you exactly the best way of doing this. I'm just going to be choosing random materials. So I'm going to go in through here, and we're going to go with, we'll just use this sample right here. We'll go with the fine sand. Okay, fine sand. So that's the fine sand right here. The next one will be the coarse sand. So I'm going to go up, trace up, and figure out the distance of how high that should be too. That's the coarse sand, and then we'll have 2 more layers right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the colors of each, or the textures, by clicking on the paint bucket, selecting the different type. So we can go in and you can go to stone, you can go into ground cover. This one, here's river rock, so click on river rock. Now you notice that you're not able to see what it actually looks like, so we can go into edit and we can adjust this down. That's a little bit too small. Actually, that's probably good right there. So 50. I just changed it so it's a little bit smaller. Okay, now let's go back. Let's go with something a little bit smaller for another layer. We'll do another layer in between here. We'll do that one right here. Okay, and go back and edit and change this as well. You can try 50. That looks good too. Then we'll go into some sand. So go back and see if we can find some sand, or we can just go with a color. So we'll just go with the color. and sometimes it takes a while for the parts to load. So we'll go with a light sand. There's the coarse sand, and we can make this one a little darker. That's a little too yellow. It's the same color. Make that a little bit darker. Okay, so there's your fine sand, coarse sand, and we want to do a layer of activated carbon. Let's say we're going to throw that in. Let's say it's going to go right here. So I drew a line there, as you can tell, and I can change that to blacks for the activated carbon. There's my activated carbon. So these are each of my layers. Now to measure out the height of each layer, which I will need for the next part, I would need to go to Dimension and click on one endpoint and click on the second endpoint and drag this over. So this first layer is about 43.9 millimeters. Then you can do the second one, second layer, third layer, fourth layer, and then the fifth layer. These are all my layers, as you can tell. So this part is pretty much done. I have everything I need, and now I can move on to the next drawing. So I'm going to save this, so File, Save As, and save it into my Student H drive. Okay. As you can tell, I now open the 3D model, the 3D 2-liter bottle, and I now have it open in Sketchup 8. So from here, it doesn't matter, like I said before, which version you're in, but I'm in Sketchup 8 now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set everything up to represent what I have in the last drawing. Okay, the last drawing is this one right here. So this first layer right here is sand. It's 43.9. So the next thing I need to do to create our 3D model is to click on each one of these layers and notice that they are now components. The first layer is our sand, the fine sand. The next one will be our coarse sand, so I can actually change that color now too. So go in and change it to the coarse sand. It's a little bit darker. There we go. And we're just going to work on these two layers right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take my tape measure tool, or actually the dimension tool, and I'm going to click here and here, drag it over. That's 30 millimeters. And I'm going to go back to my other drawing and check what the height actually should be. It says 19.5 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and take this selection, click on it, and hit the S key on the keyboard. I'm going to lower this to the 19.5 that it needs to be. Okay, move it up a little bit. There's 19.5. Okay, and from here, I'm just going to take the mouse pointer and click outside. Then this layer right over here, I can lower that. Just take the move tool, drop it down along the blue axis until it hits the next face. There it is. Alright, and we can figure out what that one should be as well, but by doing that we would need to take the dimension tool right here and click here and here, drag it over. That's 30. Once again, I would hit the S on the keyboard, click on that object, lower down that cylinder part right there. So we have the distance, that's the height, and we now have the radius, which would be 55. And to do the math, you're going to basically be using the worksheet that is provided on your folder, in the science folder for the water treatment project. And you can also check your work by clicking on each layer, right click, and hit Entity Info. And this is going to give you the conversion of actually the volume measurement in millimeters, cubic millimeters. You would need to convert that into centimeters cubed or cubic centimeters to get a number that you can actually use. But there is your millimeters, millimeters cubed for the volume of that selected layer. And that's an irregularly shaped layer that you would need to measure, and that would be kind of difficult to do. This other one, not so difficult since it's just a basic cylinder, and so on and so forth. If you need any additional layers at this time, you would need to click on the cylinder, and this is where you hit the move tool and hit the control key, so you see a plus sign, and then drag a duplicate right on top. Okay, so you now have another layer that you can resize. So once again, I hit the control key, make sure the move key is selected, drag it up in place. And when I do that, I want to make sure that I grab the bottom endpoint of that component and take it to the top endpoint of the last component. So once again, you're going to go ahead and dimension the height of each cylinder, and you will then change the colors or textures so that they reflect what was done in your water treatment device. Another important step that I need to complete before I finish both drawings of the 2D and 3D sketch is that I will need to label all of the parts that I have. So I have the fine sand, the coarse sand, the gravel, the activated carbon, and so on and so forth. So to label each one of these layers in the 2D drawing, because that's where the labels will need to go, I will need to click on this little button right here that says text, draw text, click, drag out, and I can then label that to be the sand that I'm using. So that could be the aragonite sand, and click anywhere else, hit escape, aragonite, and it should stay. There you go. The next layer then is the regular sand. So I will take this draw text label again, click on it. It's also giving me the measurement that I do not need at this time. So play sand, and then go on and label each one of these layers that you have. And when you're finished, all you will need to do is to go to File and Save. So you should have all the labels, you have all the heights of each layer, and you then have the diameter and radius. The radius, once again, is 55, half of the diameter. So you have everything that you need for the next few steps. And you will use the last part you will do is figure out the volume of each layer using both the 2D drawing and the 3D drawing. After you find the volume, you will be adding up each one of the volumes to see what the total volume will be. And then you're going to be able to figure out the percentage of each layer that is made up to make up the 100% of the volume of the contents of the actual bottle itself, which is your water treatment.